Hello. This is an explanation video of my custom dialogue system along with Quest system. So for this particular situation and items, what I like to utilize here is the gameplay tag system. The gameplay tag system is what's going to allow for the scalability and modularity within creating quests, creating dialogue, interactive components. So as you see here in this example here in my dialogue data table, we have quite a few things inside of this data table that's going to help scalability and modularity. And if for anybody that's trying to make big open world games, this is kind of the route you want to take, especially networking and setting these things up. Uh, Another component, which I'll show in a little bit, is the gameplay player subsystem. I created a couple subsystems for tests. The main one that we'll be focusing on is the player subsystem, and then there's a world event subsystem I have just for world events. So the idea is that when we are granted a quest, we check the player tags and we check what kind of tags the player has. So here we have our tag handler component that I created. And these are just some test tags I have in here from our tag data table where depending on if the NPC sees you, they look through the tag container, and then we go off the data table associated with that tag. Um, and this is also to check for if quests are completed. So let's take this example here. In my particular game, you will be able to choose your background or choose your um, kind of player background build kind of esque, right? So when you do that, I want the world to feel alive. I want the world to feel connected. So depending on your background, you'll have these different interactions with different creatures or different NPCs based on if you grew up on the far side of the hill, or are you a northerner, or you have elven blood or something along those. We can have those tags, and those tags be associated with how the conversation and quests will be granted or given to you. So in this particular situation, just a generic player name, you choose your name. So with the NPC, we go down here, we see the section. This is the tag that is required. If the player has this tag, then we can go through this particular dialogue. And here we have an array of text commenting on what's your name, and we have these indices for the in text. Now, this is kind of like an in-between buff for a check of if this dialogue is done. So with these indices for each line of dialogue, there's also a delay timer, and here it is on the time. So 0 is immediate for the first text, is always going to be 0. But for the next line of text, we can up the time on what that looks like. So from here to here will be 3 seconds, and then from here to here will be 3 seconds, and then from here to it disappearing off the screen will be 3 seconds. And within those 3 seconds, what happens is it also wants to check for the answer text. And with this answer text, what we also get is we get the ability to choose. So we get the ability to choose our tag based on our answers tags. And for example, Jane, right? So if the player chooses this particular answer, we then are granted the Jane text, and we have now acquired the Jane text, and then we go through the dialogue for that, and then a new tag is granted after the end of the dialogue. So after the end of the dialogue, because we want to have it contextual, it's just a player greeting, and it's like, "Hello, how are you? How are you doing?" And that is the complexity of interacting and keeping this world alive using gameplay tags. But how do we grant quests as well? So, depending on if the NPC has a questable checked, we have a quest section for if this is a quest. And if I'm not mistaken, we can go to clear my name, Q. So if the NPC has this particular tag and it looks at the player, then we go through the text and we have our selection here. But the awesome thing about this one is that if it's also granted that they have a quest, we go through our quest data table and we give the quest to all NPCs that are required for this test. So let's go to our data table for our quest and show you what that looks like as well. So with the quest data table, what we have here is we have a selection of everything that we need for our quest. We have our quest name and our quest description, which will be fit into the UI. And also we have um, the required tag and the required NPC that will have this tag and the objective, which will also be displayed on the UI regarding how to complete this quest. So in this particular description, at the clear my name quest, we are granting a quest tag to this character, Hazel, generic NPC, and a goblin. I'll also show you that shortly as well. So with those granted characters and these specific granted tags, what happens is on the completion of these objectives, we then add this tag to the player tag array, the tag handler. That way we can check if this quest has already been done. If these checks have already been done, then we don't need to do that check anymore. It's already added. It's added as we can view that as a stat or however I choose in the future. Now on the C++ side of things, this is my player subsystem that I created. And in this player subsystem, what I have are these structs, and these particular structs hold information that is vital to the player, where we can grab them if we need to have a save data. Any save file we have, we could just transfer that over to the save file and then load it back up into these structs, which is very useful. So we create our structs in here for player information, so the gameplay tag, our player interaction type, player background, player name. A couple of these structs are just experimental as I play around with what kind of data I want to pass through and what kind of data I want to have. But this inventory one is kind of solid. We know we want to have coins, we want to have items, and then we will know we want to be able to change the clothing of the character along with spell books. And so along with this also allows us to create data tables based off of the struct that is created within the subsystem. That way we don't have to create a blueprint struct um, specific for these things unless we need to. Okay, so with the player, let's show you that player subsystem. So you want to get um, player subsystem. Let's get the player subsystem and let me show you. So we break off of that and we want to go to inventory. We could get our inventory. We could break that off and you see that we have our values there as well. So with that, this is really good at keeping things modular, keeping track of timed events, keeping track of quests that we've already completed, and all of these major items that would take hours and months to figure out and work with, we compartmentalize that into a subsystem and then have that data being stored within components that are unique to the player or unique to the NPCs. This also helps with scheduling tasks and managing NPCs' life schedule as it goes. So what would that look like in the game? So I'm going to load this up and I'm going to show you guys exactly what that looks like. All right, don't mind the UI here. The UI is still work in progress, but since we're talking work in progress stuff, got some spells going on. We can fire off some spells now, which looks great. Um, Getting ready to do some UI stuff, but this is what we want to focus on. You see, when I back away, the icon disappears, but when I get closer, we see that this particular character has a talk bubble above his head, and this talk bubble is meant to indicate that he has a quest for us. So when we fire our interaction key, and then we have our text. Um, we have our text. I think I made the wrong selection. All right, so he said his name is gone. I know what happened. I forgot to change our way of getting to our quest, because what's going to happen is you're going to be able to select your quest into your UI. So we're going to go here and it's V. Okay. So we're going to load that back up. All right. So we're going to go here. Get our interaction. Finish the text. And now we have our quest selection. We select it. Clear my name is going to be the quest name, and then the description. And then as you see, we have our quests, NPCs that we need to complete these tasks, right? And so we have our NPCs, and as you see now, they have the quest markers above their head to indicate that they can have interaction with the quest. So you fire it off, my wand, and as you see, it is gone because we have that check for things for our gameplay tag. I know this health bar is like super big, but it's just a test. And as you see, you killed me, and then that's the text for that. Now, for death driven events, what we can do for death driven events, and you see NPC, I got to go back to the NPC for read its book, but you see that these indices have been checked for Hazel and the Goblin. So I go back to the NPC, and we're going to show that that particular action or quest marker will be completed. Read book. All right, and you see that it is now gone. And now you see all three indices has been checked. And that is the core workings of the quest system and dialogue system, and how modular that is, to where you could just add the quest and through the data table assign our specific information that we want to give, and also be able to check these NPCs. So when I check this again, you see that it's completed. We can't do it again because it's done. Also, working on this spell books. So when you acquire a spell book, um, you will have these animations um, popping in or floating in. Maybe I make some fog there, but these animations will fly the book in. And then we have player inventory, which is also a work in progress of just what the player would have on the left side. We will most likely have cosmetics, and then on the right side we will have coins and things like that. And that is just a high level rough explanation of exactly what um, I'm creating here and how I'm creating it. Keeping it modular, keeping it uniform, and in a way where I don't run into a lot of the problems that a lot of people have when creating these um, ambitious games. Keeping these things modular and keeping these things separated from the player or the world, and being able to call event driven um, quests or dynamic events, keeping that via a subsystem that can track all of these stats and along with player tags, so we don't have to create a bunch of bulls. We're just creating a container and checking that container. Has it been completed? Are we done yet? What new tag do we have after we complete a thing? Um, yeah, so that is what I'm doing. It is a great skill to learn if you are questioning on how to make the next Skyrim or the next Grand Theft Auto. I can guarantee you that they're using a lot of subsystems and gameplay tags to help further their creation. And this is just a small look and a kind of like a base creation of those particular items. And hopefully, you guys have learned something and can experience creating those items as well for your game.